top left here with a low ground gateway to start things off. It is the blue toss, it is Jieshi.
And the bottom right into the red. He's for Starving Camels, the old guard, or the medium guard at least, of Chinese Protoss. It's Cyan.
Already very different openings from these guys. Like, these are the two main openings you'll ever see in PvP. Like, there's almost no deviation besides this. It's either the two gates on the high ground for a normal PvP opening, and like this was the standard for so many years. And then on the other side of things with Jieshi, you've got the kind of newer school, but it's people are saying that can you really do it? You can get away with it on a ramp map like this, and if your max backs is like, of course you can do this. But just recently, it started to fall a little bit out of fashion with the amount of aggression you can throw, unless you handle it nothing short of perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And MaxBax is, again, one of those players that he has done this so often. He has done, I mean, he developed the build where he has every branch. This is a deep tree. This is a deep root system that you have to pay attention to if you want to play this build. He's got every single one mapped out. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Jieshi has that similar mapping. He knows the root system nearly as well, because Cyan's about to throw something at him, right? There's going to be a Stargate on the way. You're proxied in the middle of the map. And Jieshi, on his scouting pattern, he's looking for proxies on the north side. We don't have anything for this high ground. So this first Stargate, he may see something in the main base. He saw, of course, there that this was a double gate expand, but he won't know exactly what's coming.
No, he won't. You're absolutely right. And a Stargate, like, I got to see Arc Fire against Mana, I believe, on this map, and the proxy was in the exact same location. It was just done with a totally different building. It was done with a robo facility. So this one by Cyan, it just shows you that even if you know your opponent's probably proxying, finding out where it is a big deal. Finding out what it is also a massive deal. Totally different arsenal of units is going to be launched at you. And yeah, Jieshi, upon seeing this with no Nexus going up here, he's going to know that something's up.
I think that's almost the default. If you open single gate expand and your opponent opens two gate expand, they are behind. They are absolutely behind. They're going to have to do something to really balance things out. And if they can, well, they're just probably, I mean, obviously execution matters, but they're going to probably lose the game. It's just doesn't feel very good. So it's not surprising that Jieshi's going to run across the map. He's going to say, oh, well, you know what? I single gate expanded, you two gated. There is no natural. Of course there isn't, but I got to figure out what exactly is going to happen. So the stalkers at the front are really cute, because eventually this is going to make it harder for Jieshi to defend both the main and the natural at the same time. The Oracle dives into the main, stalkers put pressure at the front. That can be a problem. But these stalkers, they hit a little bit before the Oracles bend, so that initial pressure, it keeps the stalkers on the low ground, theoretically. But we're not pairing it up yet.
There was a few cool things happening there that Cyan did, by the way. So Jieshi moved up the ramp with that initial Zealot and saw the gateway still producing, but there was two Zealots. So Cyan was totally faking him out, making him think he was producing more units, whereas we knew it was Oracles on the go, and he's got a Nexus up behind it as well. Now these Oracles come in, but Jieshi is a little bit prepared at least. He does have a couple of Stalkers here, no shield battery, so damage is being done, but Cyan needed a lot to try and get this even, and 6 workers. Hey, he's done a pretty good job so far with this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's getting ahead damage, but it's certainly equalizing damage. You know, at the end of the day here, Jieshi still has the worker lead. He still actually, he built a pretty quick robo here as well with a Warp Prism on the way. So he kind of wants to go for a very quick counterpunch off this 2-gate opening, which is pretty interesting here, Ben. He's only on 2 gates. He's not really committing to this, but having an Immortal, having a couple Stalkers maybe, having a Warp Prism, that does provide him some counterattack power. And that's pretty cool. Meanwhile, of course, Oracles are going to try to dive in. Ooh. There are 3 Stalkers here. One Oracle's going to go down. Second one gets a couple more probes, but losing that first Oracle does not spark joy. Doesn't feel very good when you do feel that pressure to find value.
So this Warp Prism, it's probably going to be used for getting like 2 Adepts out. You did note that there was only 2 gates, so the Adepts, I love it when they shade them in or shade them back to the Warp Prism, and you get a lot of damage done with this. But if we look at what Cyan's got over to the right of this Warp Prism, he's actually more than prepared for this kind of stuff. And this is what I talked about the young whippersnapper with the tricks up his sleeve, and the old guard kind of being like, hey, I'm going to meet you with experience here and bring you down to my size. And so far, this Warp Prism isn't going to get anything done. Lovely recall, by the way. This was a very nice quick recall by him. And even doing this glaive, or rather the glaive feat, look, he's blinked away. And He might have been able to get a few more probes in that natural there, but not bad at all.
I mean, Ben, you said he's not going to get anything done on the Warp Prism, and losing an Adept is unfortunate. But, hey, he actually got a couple probes, and he got his Warp Prism out. That's really solid. That's a nice move coming out of Jieshi, especially given the situation where he has taken probe damage early on. He's lost 11 total probes. And this, again, it's equalizing damage, going back and forth here, value being found, but not enough to really define how the game goes. And now, I mean, this is a lot of Stalkers. This is an Immortal. This is pressure on the map at the very least. At the very least, he's going to shut down this pylon. The Stargate's not going to be able to build anything anymore. But we got a little bit more than that. 3 more Stalkers warping in. Is this going to be enough to break the third, though? I'm not so sure. There's a decent Stalker count.
There certainly is. That Phoenix also plays a pivotal role here, either picking up the Immortal or the Sentry, just picking them apart. And Cyan, he's just kind of posturing. Jieshi's put shield batteries down in his main base, so he's like, you know what, that's cool. Can't really deal any damage with that. I want to be out on the map and protect my third. But so far, Cyan has definitely done a good job of leapfrogging his opponent when it comes to taking a third base. And now his is nicely saturated. Eco-wise, he's definitely caught up. Upgrade-wise, he's a little bit behind, but you can see that he's situating himself for charge lots here, which is absolutely a cool call against so much anti-armored units that Jieshi has.
Yeah, no, Zealots, Stalkers, they do a lot of burst damage. Immortals, they do a lot of burst damage. Each individual shot is worth a lot. But when you have 10, 15, 20 Zealots running in, the damage gets spread. It really is pretty valuable. This Phoenix is just going to go down. So that's, oh no, it's not. Gets out at the very end. I was going to say that's one lack of a force multiplier, but the Phoenix survives, which is actually a bit surprising. But Cyan, he's got pylons everywhere. He's got a pylon on the north side, 4th base on the way at the same time. But we do have to talk about how key it is that this first Oracle went down. There's, of course, a second one still here, still being obnoxious, but you talk about being able to be active on the map. Knocking that first Oracle down means the shield battery is really all you need. And that frees up Jieshi so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, being able to leave your base or, like, you know, just warp in a Stalker every time that Oracle shows up, as opposed to needing 3 or 4 Stalkers in your mineral line at all times. Huge. I've almost seen Protoss players in the past where they are in this situation, just make another Oracle, very right. And it'd be, you know, that initial one and very, very nicely utilized. Cyan, by the way, look, he's getting a supply lead and he's feeling confident enough to throw down a proxy gate on the north side of the map. Jieshi will spot it out though, so won't be getting taken out by that anytime soon, but gets a big scout on this 4th base and where it is.
Yeah, I think he's got to do something at this point. He's down 8 workers, and more importantly, again, this 4th base is done. His 4th base and delayed quite a bit. There's a pylon there, so good luck. The 4th base is very delayed. But the one thing he does have going for himself, of course, you mentioned this a little bit, he's got that +2 timing, and actually, DTs in the main.
Yeah, the DTs in the main, or like DTs in general, could maybe slow down things. I mean, Cyan does, fortunately for him, have 3 observers already out. He even has like cannons coming out in each base, so he is more than prepared for these DTs. Jieshi wanted a lot more than what he just got with those.
I mean, 5 probes is a start, certainly, but yeah, in this situation where his economy is just not doing all that well, not as solid as it could be, losing 5 probes is not, or getting 5 probes is not enough. And now Cyan's ready to get aggressive here. He's up in army supply. He's up in workers. He's very happy to make this happen. He's got his charge done as well. And even though Jieshi has that +2 timing, without charge, it's really hard to take this fight. You talked about it. Zealots against Immortals and Stalkers, they're so good. So Cyan here, I don't see a Warp Prism with his army, but he's going to try to find his way into the natural. He's just found his way right on in, and that's going to be a dead Cyber Core maybe, but now Jieshi, he's going to try to re-engage. Force Field keeps him back for now. Zealots get warped in, but they're slow, Ben. They don't do nearly enough. Your overcharge gets popped for a while, and this could be the death of Cyan. This is still scary. The Zealot charge done right now, +2 versus +1. The Zealots, well, they're all dead now, and the Stalkers are just going to start to fall. This was a cool idea. This was such a cool idea from Cyan, but at this point, you gotta feel like you need some sort of recall. You gotta find some way out of this. This is a disaster for Cyan. He's lost so much.
He certainly has, and he's going to continue losing units. And I love that Jieshi sniped that observer, one of the first things he did. Then he started warping in DTs and such, and you know that just carved a hole in Cyan's army. And Cyan, I don't think any of this was necessary. I felt he was quite ahead in the situation he found himself, but now he's struggling. He's running home.
Yeah, I thought this was a cool idea, right? Jieshi was a little bit out of position. You can dive into the natural, knock some tech down maybe, go into the main base, get a recall off. Okay, fine. Makes sense. But he held on too long. He actually decided to take the fight. I guess he had that Warp Prism on the backside. He was willing to try to get a surround on the Immortals, and he did. But there was just so much damage on that +2 timing. Zealot charge was done just in time. And now, this is a dead fourth base out of Cyan. Yeah, there's Zealots on the north side, but the cannons, the Warp-ins deal with that one for the most part. So Jieshi now massively in the driver's seat here. But Ben, I think that the key thing here is that this is a self-inflicted wound. Cyan did not have to do this. He was in a great spot. Just playing, poking would have been totally fine. And instead, he booted himself right out of this game.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, he's trying to get some damage done, counter-attack damage, and he's got DTs of his own right now, and I don't think there's a single obs on the map for Jieshi. In fact, no, he does have 2 out now, but they are absolutely in wrong location, so maybe with some hope he could, but, I mean, he's so down and out at this point. Even that Archon is really standing strong. I mean, Cyan's lifeline here is that stasis, but how long will it last? Not very long at all. I think the writing's on the wall here for Cyan.
Well, I mean, it does last long enough to kill off all the Immortals and the Archons. That's fun. And these Stalkers, they will have to run away. So I guess the game, it's not fair to say stabilizes, but it does go on. And you can always try to make something happen as the game does continue. But yeah, it's looking pretty rough. Your triple army supply up 12 workers. All that's required right now is Jieshi, get cannons in your mineral lines again. Make sure you're safe there. But get an observer with the army. That's all you really need. You're gonna be happy. Ground armor on the way for Cyan because he's a little bit broke. Well, he's broke now, but he had a lot of money early on. I didn't notice he went double forge. And that may provide some value, but again, double the army supply, Ben. That's some heavy calculus.
No, so that was something that I was just looking at for the last 20 seconds or so. I was like, he had a 4th base before his opponent, way before. 3rd base, way before. He also invested in the double forge. And those upgrades, GG is called. So Jieshi takes 1-0 lead. But those upgrades were nowhere near being done. But that's a huge, huge investment to a lot. And then you talked about it. There's no Warp Prism with that army. He was taking a one-way ticket into that base. Like, Cyan was so confident about getting damage done, or either feeling like he was behind, but he shouldn't. That almost, I'm ticking that off, because like he shouldn't have felt that. I felt he thought he was so far ahead that he was just going to win. He was just going to absolutely collapse him, but that did not happen whatsoever. That was definitely a bad call and a wrong call by Cyan. And Jieshi, honestly, waiting for that mistake, he handled it very nicely afterwards. Obviously, DTs can get a little bit scary and messy afterwards, but fun game to start things off.
Yeah, no, kind of fun. And again, I think that game goes very differently if Cyan doesn't send himself on a one-way ticket to hell. That's, you know, sometimes you feel overconfident and you decide to get really aggressive and it doesn't really work out all that well. But also, Ben, I got some inside baseball. The admin messaged me during the first game and he sent me a screenshot with translations, by the way, very, very nicely done, about the veto process between Jieshi and Cyan. And you just have the two of them talking about how Cyan says, I troll in PvP. And Jieshi's response was that he does too. So clearly, we saw they were just doing, Cyan was just doing a little bit of the trolling in this setup.
I don't know. I didn't feel either of them was trolling that hard this game. Like, I think that they both played pretty sensible. I mean, maybe that big push was a bit like, oh, okay, that's a little bit trolly, but okay. Next map. Alki 1, as my good friend Rotterdam likes to call it. This could be interesting. Obviously, it offers a gold base, but given how good Blink Stalkers are with kind of traversing each side of the map, probably not going to see it played too often, I don't believe, and with how pivotal Stalkers are in this matchup. But interesting one regardless with how you can play this. And I've loved how we've seen the Zel Naga utilized by a lot of the racers, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, it gives a lot of power, and more importantly, it's not the Zelnaga, it's not the vision necessarily, Ben. It's the fact that you can claim the Zelnaga while still being an Atlanta sight blocker, which is just absolutely broken to hold. So there's a lot of priority on it. By the way, of course, as we get into this, it's worth talking about that we have a new pick-ban setup. In these best of fives, it's ban, then players pick some maps, and they ban some more, then they pick the rest. So I don't think Alcyone is all that crazy of a map. It shouldn't surprise anyone that we're going to see it. We've been seeing it a lot. But this is the product of only 2 bans. And also, of course, this is Jieshi's map pick. So, you know, just so you all are paying attention to that one. But we're going to have to see what's going to happen on Jieshi's map pick as we get into game 2.
And speaking of the man, spawning over in the bottom left-hand side here with a high ground pylon, it is Jieshi.
And in the upper right, for starving camels in the red, his name, of course, is Cyan.
Now this time, mirrored builds thus far. Obviously, we're only 50 seconds into the game, so obviously it's going to be sort of mirrored, sort of symmetrical going on by these two. But when game 1, it was Jieshi going for that Nexus on the low ground, along with the gateway and such, and then he was against this proxy Stargate that nibbled a little bit of damage. But then Cyan did the leapfrogging, and already from Cyan, okay, I dare say this could be used just to get a proxy down. Him thinking it's very safe on this side of the map, like trying to get units out is a little bit tricky over here. And so far, it looks like Cyan has similar ideas to game 1, at least to get things going.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see him keep the probe right here. You can proxy Stargate your opponent very close to their main base if that's what you want to go for. But instead, Cyan's sending Jieshi on a boondoggle. He says, look, I've got a pylon on the map. It's on the right side. It's on the island side of this map. You got to be very afraid, but it's just a pylon. He's sending his probe to scout afterwards. The entire point of this is just to send Jieshi for a loop, to have him scout around, to have him play more defensively. And of course, it's one of those interesting scenarios where, because the wall has been mined out, you can click on the other side. You can see the pathing is going to be a little bit different for Jieshi. And that does mean that he's going to have to pay attention. He's going to look around, try to see what he can find. But, well, for him, the pylon's on the high ground. And unfortunately, while there are some sort of anti-gravity tech for these probes, Ben, it's not enough for them to see up the high ground.
No, I mean, this probe does get to scout inside the base here. Gets to see the 2 gateways producing, which is often a sign that it isn't going to be a Stargate. Often Protosses can trick your opponent and stuff, but Jieshi at least knows there's something behind this wall. Doesn't know what, and we do know that, unfortunately for him, it is just kind of like a, what's it called? Well, a little bit of a trick here. Just a random pylon that can get sniped. Is a little bit vulnerable later on, but Jieshi is the one making moves across the map here with the adepts.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Schrodinger's pylon. You don't know whether it's got something or not until it's observed, but anyway.
Oh, wait. The probe is actually heading back to that pylon. A little bit of a secret lovers tiff over here, kind of like meeting up. But okay, Cyan does block those adepts from getting inside. If Jieshi noticed that with a probe, I'd have actually kept that probe there just to find out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, certainly stalkers could have found their way over. Adepts or something would knock that down. But yeah, this is weird coming out of Cyan. It's very much a, it's very much a double blind type of idea. I'm not proxying. It's just a fake gateway. No, actually, I am proxying. Have fun. As they are just canvassing the entire map here. Adepts are... The amount of vision that Jieshi and Cyan have this early game is so cool. They are just really putting the premium on figuring out what their opponent's going to do. And for now, when Adept gets in the main base, it sees the Immortal. That's a key scout. Cyan now is going to know that, okay, there's a Robo out. He doesn't know how many gateways. He doesn't know if there's a 3rd gateway extra, but he knows there's an Immortal. He knows there's a Robo. That, at the very least, is something that he can start to play around with. And with the Warp Prism on the way here, Ben, there is... I said this last game, but it was only for 2 Adepts. This time... only 1 gate, 1 base. It does feel like there's a lot of pressure that Jieshi is about to unlock.
It does, but look at Cyan's base right now, what he's building. He is taking this very seriously. He's producing a lot of shield batteries on his side. He's also, I keep looking at where his vision is. He keeps looking at that probe in the south, constantly at things, but that little hit squad of units here will have Blink soon, making it a lot scarier, and 4 Stalkers is enough to one-shot those probes. This can get a little bit spicy.
Yeah, but Blink's not done right
nice
yet. The
field.
force field warp-in is so nice. This is going to be a really solid trade for Jieshi. And by the way, knocks the pylon down on the other side. That's where that hit squat was. Now Blink is done. So I guess it is going to be 2 for 2 at the end. The question now, 3 Stalkers, a Sentry, and Adept and Immortal here, Ben. Is it going to find anything? I mean, there are a lot of shield batteries on the high ground.
There certainly are. I mean, an Immortal is nothing to scoff at, is it? But that's a lot of Blink Stalkers, man. Like, they both have to be so careful. The armies are so brittle against one another, and oh, that big chunky Immortal. You got to remember, Cyan here, even though he's got all these shield batteries that are very nice for his units, those gateways are very exposed against Big Daddy Immortal.
That they are, and well, you also don't want to be trapped in the high ground like this. I like Cyan's got a couple stalkers just on the map, shutting down any sort of vision, thinking about doing whatever they're going to do eventually, but he maintains that aggressive option on the map just a little bit. And now he's going to go for a big surround, maybe go for a really big amount of counter pressure, because with Blink, his stalkers can go, they can get themselves on the other side, and because he holds the Xel'Naga, Jieshi really has no idea. If he knew, he'd be going up on the high ground right now. He's got a War Prism, so the sentry's not all that scary. And there we go again. You can pick up the Immortal once it takes some damage, go on the low ground. Now there's no sentry energy. But these stalkers on the other side from Cyan, Ben, I am terrified of them. There's not a lot on Jieshi's side.
There is now. There is now. He recalled absolutely everything back home to deal with this. And remember, Blink got used to get in. Blink can't be used to get out. So Jieshi taking a mighty fine little engagement here. So cost him a recall, but did get himself a good 3 or 4 stalkers there for his trouble. So actually, that could have been really, really messy and dicey, but I think he reacted very swiftly and smoothly.
He did. He really did. I was looking, I'm like, I didn't see that recall. I was looking on the other side. So you know what? Those stalkers getting back home is a big deal. And it's the second game this series, Ben, where Jieshi, he goes and he does something fine, and then Cyan hits him with a counter punch, and he out punches the counter punch, and he handles whatever Cyan wants to do, and that's how he builds a lead into the game. This time it's a recall, knocking down the stalkers, just having the star sense to realize what's happening. But of course, Cyan, this is Al-Kayani. This is a map where you get to do other things, and in this game, he's taking the gold because, Ben, why not?
Why not, indeed? I mean, this is cool. I mean, like, when you are in Cyan's position where you absolutely have map control, in the sense that your army isn't stronger, but it's more nimble. Like, he can constantly try and threaten the main, the natural. I'm a bit surprised that he went for the closer gold base of the gold bases, and there is an observer just sat on top, and oh my goodness, okay. Like, the Robo isn't even done yet, and the DTs are out, but he revealed the DT on the defense here. So, I mean, like, this DT has some work to do over here, but it's going to start getting stuff done. And now, Jieshi has bought himself time to get out on the map and cancel that gold base, maybe, or just threaten it. Really lovely play out of Jieshi.
A little bit awkward control, though, from that DT. That could have gotten 7, 8 probes, maybe. Instead, it attacked the Nexus for a little bit, which is not really what you want there, Ben. So, a little bit awkward there, but still forces the stalkers back home, gets real economic damage done. And without Blink, it does feel a little bit hard to punish the gold base, so he's not going to go for that, just going to go back home. But he did buy time. He did force his opponent's army back home. He did get some damage. And now, playing defense here, he should be okay.
There's a few little funny things here. I love that he was waiting behind the mineral wall, when he could have just ran around and killed this rock pile over here to penetrate this base. But, you know, just playing safe, I guess, just being careful. But he did wait for the probe to come over and deal with that rock. So sometimes with these new maps, you can sort of forget what kind of situation you find yourself in. Now that DT, it's like, oh, look, the rocks are broken over here. That's lovely, because this is the true weakness of these gold bases. This is so vulnerable, and you're stuck in this little choke. This is a very horrible position for Cyan to find himself in.
That it is, and more importantly, that initial little tangle, Jieshi didn't try to kill stalkers. He didn't even do all that much damage. He just targeted the observer down. Wanted to make sure that he could get a DT in, that he could have that value. And now there's another observer, but he's going to target it down. No, not again. Cyan's dead. Observers, man, how do they work?
Well, they see one another, and then Jieshi is, he's the observer sniper, man. Like, this is a couple of games in a row that he's got those DTs out, just being kind of cool with them. Very much prioritizes the vision and knowledge with them. And so far, he's just being cool, man. Like, he has showcased 2 very different builds. He's very decent micro-wise. You can really tell, like, none of these engagements look super scuffed, and it's just clinical. Like, Cyan is trying to throw little tricks at him, and he's meeting him, and he's just overlapping him, it feels like. And yes, Cyan needs to step it up a little bit, because right now Jieshi is just running away with this.
It really does feel like we're seeing Cyan build advantages. He put himself in solid positions game 1 and game 2, and then he gets ahead of himself. He says, I can go do something. It's gonna be great. And then he just trips over his own shoelaces, falls down the stairs, tumbles down. He's all bruised up. Jieshi stomps on his head when he's down at the bottom. And it's like, great, dude, you build a lead. But that's just a greater height to fall from. And then Jieshi knocks that down, puts himself in a solid spot, and takes the game from there. And I want to see Cyan not try so hard. I guess is the thing. You know, it's funny, Ben, when you're learning to play golf or play another sport, play baseball, play cricket, I guess, for the UK audience, whatever it is. The key thing they teach you is to stay within yourself, to swing at 80% power, to not just go and spin around on your back foot and go for the fences, but to stay within control, because you will do better. You will hit the ball further. You will be far more accurate, far more repeatable if you don't go at 100%. And it does feel like Cyan here is trying to go at 110%, which, as we're seeing, it's not nearly as controlled.
Okay, now I see where you're going with that. I was like, Beomorph, it's not quite the American time zone yet. Then it was like mentioning baseball and then mentioning cricket. I was like, oh, there's not that many UK folk here either, I guess. But missing out football, like you can say the same thing with the striking the ball and stuff. But then I realized, like, if you said football, you'd probably be thinking of that nice old sport hand egg over there. But third map of the series, it's going to be Solaris. Like this one, it's just a nice. It feels like it's very much got the ancient cistern kind of like textile look to it. But then it's got these speed zones in the middle where you can kind of get a bit funky, a bit curvy. I've seen disruptors utilized on this map very, very nicely. But it's another Yukon low ground expansion kind of map. And Jieshi, he looked decent in the first game, but he looked super good in the second. I think this is definitely more his playground when it comes to PvP, just from the limited bits that I've seen of him.
Yeah, we're going to have to find out, though. Is the upper right in the blue. He's up to, maybe again, this is more of his bailiwick. For Dragon Kites of Gaming, it's Jieshi.
And spawning over in the bottom left. 0-2 down. It is the red toss. It is Cyan. Yeah, I got to see Jieshi's series in the Swiss format stage against Firefly, and without knowing everything about either one of these players, I heard a lot about Firefly recently. He's been very solid. Definitely the guy to look out for in this region when it comes to Protoss. Like, I've seen him when he's been in brackets against Hero, and people are like, hey, Firefly absolutely has a chance there. And I'm like, holy crap, then he must be good if, you know, people give him a good chance against Hero. And then Jieshi was just like, boom, and just absolutely murdered him. And so far, what I'm still seeing from Jieshi in PvP, which is kind of considered a bit random of a matchup at sometimes, he's just showing that he's ice cold and cool as a cucumber under pressure.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is not just that he's doing really well in PvP, that he's ice cold, cool under pressure, whatever you want to say, that he's cool as a cucumber. The fact that he hasn't dropped a single map in this tournament is, especially again, when you have a lot of PvP that can be random against players like Firefly who are playing really well, that's really impressive. And even, but that being said, Ben, even if he does get through this series, he's probably going to have to run into Oliveira next round. All due respect to Firefly, I think Firefly is a very good player. Oliveira is still the reigning world champion, still very good. And I don't know that you 3-0 Oliveira, so this might be his last opportunity to maintain that clean sweep.
Might be. I mean, Oliveira is he is a world champion, as he just said. Jieshi is going to go to what he's been doing, though, when it goes to 2-gate openings. It is adepts. He's very good with them out on the map. We've seen that he buys time with them to get something else done, and going to the robo as well. Cyan will go for a little bit of a pylon, mainly for information, I guess. Probably not expecting too early of a Nexus, but it's nice to find out what units pop out. And Cyan, is this 3? In fact, he didn't go Stargate the last game, but he went Stargate the first game, but now it's a very, very safe Stargate in his base.
Yeah, so 3 for 3, but very different ways you're playing it. Game 1, game 2, you proc. Well, did he proxy Stargate game 2?
No. He just went for that fast blink, didn't he? Yes. With the stalkers on the map and stuff.
Yeah, you got I mean, we saw the proxy pylon, and I got myself all confused. So, not going to see that, but 2 for 3 is not bad. Again, one aggressive.
What's a proxy gold base, you know, like taking your opponent's gold after things went awry. And he actually, yeah, he let that pylon finish, so he does get to see the units that have popped out. And Jieshi, he has 2 adepts out on the map, which got thwarted by Cyan with his warped-in stalkers at home, or rather, just kind of morphed-in stalkers, I suppose, through the normal gateways. But does get that information out, does lose the pylon, but it's just going to be a nice standard game from Cyan behind things. Gets the Nexus, gets the Oracle on the go. Does have a proxy pylon, though, so Nexus and wanting to be aggressive. I like it, but it's definitely definitely putting a lot on the table, being quite risky.
That it is. And this pylon, I think, is just going to be for a couple of depths warping it eventually, not anything really sustained. Jieshi, though, on the other hand, he was posturing like he wanted to get a natural maybe. This is 3-gate robo. This is aggression coming out of the man in game 3 when he has a 2-game lead. He can afford to get very aggressive in this game and not worry about it all that much. If you're a competitor in this state, you're not worrying about not ever dropping a single map. You're worrying about winning the series. And if you think that, first of all, I mean, you can just straight up win with this. But even if you don't, making sure that your opponent knows that you can get aggressive, that you can go for things like this, well, it does put a little bit of fear of God into him. As for right now, Jieshi on the low ground, he at the very least feels like he's going to have enough to cancel this base. And what do we have on the high ground here? It's just 2 gateways. There's a void ray on the way that can be powerful, but I'd rather have a robo. And yeah, natural just gets canceled here. Nice move from Jieshi.
It certainly is. Oh, I thought he was going to try and trap that Stalker on the low ground. Look, Jieshi's very well prepared at home too. Not only Stalker's there, but a shield battery as well. Cyan got a few probes for his troubles, but this has definitely been a win moving out across the board here for Jieshi. And yeah, Big Daddy Immortal again. Just one Immortal is so big a deal. I mean, that Void Ray definitely will help out. Already using Prismatic Enlightenment though, as Jieshi moved off. I think Jieshi's handling this very nicely.
And the key thing here now is the Observer arrives that Jieshi no longer has to be quite so aggressive with the Warp Prism. Doesn't have to be quite so ballsy with it to make sure he can knock the pylon down or the gateway down. And that means he's got more save potential, more warp-ins, whatever you want to call it. It means that this is a little bit more sustained. As now Oracles, they try to dive in once again, but these 4 Stalkers, excuse me, they're doing such a nice job of denying all of that. So Jieshi, he's got this powerful contain. He's really doing a good job of denying the Oracles, but now the Adepts, as they shade on the low ground, they're going to look to assassinate the Sentry if they commit, but they're not going to. And Cyan, he does have 2 Void Rays. He hasn't lost a single one of those yet. Double shield battery on the high ground as well. This army is rapidly becoming something that Jieshi is going to have to be pretty afraid of. There's a lot of power here.
I actually like what Cyan's done here with these Void Rays. I actually think that Jieshi could have been more gutsy with that Observer just to find out exactly what's going on behind the lines, because no Robo's facility out. Obviously, the Observer could come home and spot it with Revelation, but you know those are on the other side. But yeah, 3 Void Rays to come out and pop things open. I like what Cyan's done here. It's his only chance of getting down this ramp.
Doesn't commit, though. And now Force Field gets spent. The other really cool thing about this, look at how many Adepts there are, Ben. There are, what are we looking at? This is like 8, 10 Adepts. And given the fact that there's enough Sentries here, that's actually really cool. So Oracles are going to go for the bust right now. Yeah, there's a Force Field, so the Stalkers can't gun down, but the Warp Prism goes down so quickly. The Oracles will die here as well, but everything else is just dead. The Recall doesn't even catch the Immortal. What a cool break coming out of Cyan. Jieshi, I would have loved to see him go back home. He had the natural. He's got Blink on the way. He would have been very fine, but he wanted to maintain the contain as well. And you know, Ben, the one thing that goes through Force Fields, it's those Adept Shades. It really is nice. And now, oh, Void Ray has to be very careful. One will fall, but the Adepts, they're trapping things a little bit here. Stalkers, they do have to run away. Getting a Void Ray, though, before the defense, that's still pretty nice. But Ben, is it enough?
It doesn't feel like it, although shield batteries are hard to kill for anything besides these Stalkers and Void Rays. And honestly, hey, Void Ray numbers are being real thinned up here, so maybe that shield battery will absolutely be worth it. But Adepts, there's plenty of them, even more being warped in from that pylon that you talked about earlier. Cyan, this amount of Adepts, I don't think Jieshi can clean them up in time. This is just probe massacre galore, and wow, Cyan, this is one way to pop yourself back into a series.
That it is. I mean, it's just death at this point. 15 probes to 26, 42 army supply to 13. Jieshi would have been in an incredible spot if he just went home, had some fun, set up his defense, said be very happy. But instead, he tried to maintain that contain. He tried to have his cake and eat it too. And now, well, his natural's dead. He's got 15 probes. He's got really not enough army here. Blink is, you know, Ben, Blink is a really good upgrade. It doesn't make up for triple the army supply.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, Stalkers, even though they're decent, they don't deal necessarily the best amount of damage to this army. Like, these Adepts, this amount of Stalkers, you aren't going to clean this up efficiently. And look at this, Cyan. Jieshi's whole army is beating down on him while he's like, haha, I'm killing your pylon. Like, you can't warp in anything else anymore. And he can get away with that. Like, Cyan is He's all over this game here, BO.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, Adepts don't kill Stalkers just about as much as Stalkers don't really kill Adepts. But there's no production. There's no cyber core. There's only one gateway. And again, it's 17 workers to 26. So, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Jieshi, he's hanging around looking for a miracle, which fair. You're up 2-0. You might as well try. But at this point, it's just a matter of figuring out when exactly Jieshi decides to throw in the towel. Is it now? Is it when he runs into a stasis trap? Is it when his opponent attacks across the map, adds an immortal to the fray? I don't know exactly when he decides to tap out, but there really is only one solution to this game, and that's game 4.
I am so surprised that Cyan backed off after all that, by the way. Like, he was killing all that production, and it felt like, all right, you know, that's the biggest the army's going to get now, basically. And he had high ground, and then he just kind of backed out of there and was like, okay, let's move back. We've done damage. Let's get on out of there. Very, very surprising choice. That stasis does come in handy. We'll get a few of these stalkers on this low ground here, but can he take advantage of this and move in? Because he sees that, hey, there is a Nexus going up with Observer. He's got a Warp Prism going into the main as well. Cyan's being so careful with this, and I suppose life is on the line here within regards to this series. Oh, not syncing up these attacks either.
No, it's a little bit awkward. And, you know, not only that, Ben, we did have Cyan go and really trip over his feet 2 games in a row. Get too aggressive, lose the game. Twice over. That's why Jieshi's at 2-0. So I don't blame him for going and just trying to make sure that he has a 100% chance to win, not a 97, not a 99% chance to win. Well, that does give Jieshi a window back into this game. It's not a big one. It's a very small window. He's in the sub-basement, and you can see a little speck of light up there. But you take a shovel, you take a crowbar, you can start to pry yourself back into a game. And for now, well, his natural's a little bit faster. He's going to be able to have maybe one more cycle of probes, building 2 when his opponent builds 1. His economy is not quite as bad as it was, and he does have Blink, which is a powerful tool when your opponent doesn't. It means you can poke at the edge. It means you can maybe do a little bit more, although he wishes he had those stalkers. That stasis trap will slow him down a little bit. And this is 3 stasis traps right now. This is so punishing.
There's a lot I don't like about this, BO. A lot. Like, stalkers, Blink stalkers, the place that they don't want to be is in their own base, because they're getting no function out of their superior mobility. Cyan had him in his base, and then he moves off, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to let you have free reign of the map here. And he saw that his opponent was taking a faster Nexus than him, and he moved away. So within regards to poker, if you will, this is almost like knowing that you're ahead and then showing your cards, and then, you know, the flop comes, and you're like, oh, damn. Like, now we look at the supplies here, like, just to put it into perspective, it was like double the army value. Now, it absolutely isn't. Probe count, Jieshi's caught up. I think Cyan made massive blunders this game, just compared to game 1, where he didn't know whether he thought he was a little bit ahead, and he kind of ran into that natural and just lost everything. This game was totally different in that he was super damn ahead. He was already there making the killing blow, and then backed off.
Yeah.
He might have just absolutely... he's let Jieshi back in this game, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's not fair. We do have to point out that Cyan is still in a solid spot. Yes, worker supplies are equal. Cyan's got his 3rd base much faster here. His army is much more complex. He's got immortals on top of the stalkers, although Blink's not done yet, but it will be soon. That's going to equalize that advantage. So Cyan's not in a bad spot, but you're right. Compared to ending the game, it is a much worse spot than he was in. And it's kind of funny now that with the benefit of hindsight, we can take a look at this and say, game 1, game 2, Cyan got too aggressive. Jieshi punished it. Jieshi wins the game. Game 3, Cyan doesn't get aggressive enough. And now Jieshi's punishing it by existing. I'm not going to say he's going to win the game yet, Ben, but this would be 3 straight pretty heavy flubs if Jieshi's able to win this game.
No, absolutely. Like, when I think about the supply, like a couple of minutes ago or a few minutes ago, it was something like 45 for Jieshi against 69, and you know the probe count was like 16 to 26 and stuff. Like, you look at it now and you're like, oh yeah, there's absolutely opportunities here for Cyan to throw. And his army now, it is 3 immortals versus 3, 12 stalkers versus 11. There's not much in it. It's just that Jieshi also has like 6 sentries in the mix, which definitely make things problematic. But Cyan does look like he's lining up a bit of aggression in the main, along with some aggression at this third base. This could be very tricky to hold. And Jieshi, where's your army, mate? All right, it's at the natural in neither place that it wants to be.
No, really isn't. The force fields are buying some time, but it's not going to be enough. And it seems like Cyan's just going to stick the landing here, knock the third base down. And now with the Warp Prism keeping the Immortals alive, that's pretty solid. But it's a much better arc for Jieshi in this fight, even as the Stalkers blink around. Only 2 Immortals firing. Now the third one's going to try to join the fray here. Jieshi, desperately, he needs to win this fight. But Cyan, the concave, it's so good, man. Stalkers will get on top of the Warp Prism. They're going to knock that down, but at what cost? No, Jieshi's just dead. And now we go to game 4, but man, Cyan, he didn't have to make it that hard, Ben. He could have just ended the game.
He could have. He could have. And, you know, I felt that was very risky and not the best decision making by him, but overall managing to do a scissor attack there, a bit in the main base with that stasis. There was some like 3 warped in stalkers there to counter, and then he was just out of position for that third. Like, you know, Jieshi was cutting a lot of corners to try and catch back up. Like, he didn't have good vision of the map, even though we had 6 sentries to utilize for vision. Wasn't really like he was caught with his pants down there. That was just a weird PvP, and it felt like, as nervous as Cyan might be being 0-2, and it's like, oh, I got to be safe, you know, I'm ahead, don't want to throw it here. Jieshi may be thinking like, oh, like, you know, how do I get myself back into this, and just, yeah, finding himself not in a good spot. This is going to be the wrong map over here for this one. But yeah, I do wonder what will be the 4th map of this series between these guys.
Well, I can tell you, actually. I have that power. I have the veto sheet in front of me, and map 4 is, of course, going to be, let me read this properly, is going to be Oceanborn for map 4. And Hecate, if we get there, is going to be map 5. So that means that Rider Set was banned out. Equilibrium was removed, and Hard Lead and Golden Aura as well. Again, pretty standard match, or pretty standard map order that we got here. But you're right, Ben. I mean, I maybe part of that was being worried that you're down 0-2 and then nerves there. But man, I'm just so happy for Cyan's sake that he didn't lose that game, because imagine going down to the lower bracket like that, having a winning position 3 games in a row, throwing it away 3 games in a row, and then on Thursday next week having to go, and I think the games start Thursday next week, but having to go and do it again, and having to go and recover from that. I guess it's actually Friday for Asia lower bracket. But anyway, having to recover from that, that's a heavy mental toll.
Certainly is. Certainly is. Like, that can definitely shake you a little bit, because, you know, every best of 5, if you're 0-2 down, you're still where you started. You still have to win 3 maps. So no matter how you look at it, no matter how down you are in a series, the journey that you have to take is still the same. And that's something that you've got to kind of clear your mind of. And Cyan, he's been in this position before, and, you know, I think most pros, where you're down, but still the same journey you have to take. Like, this is absolutely still possible. And Jieshi, he's not bulletproof, you know. Like, we've seen that a few of these moves from Cyan, like Mass Adept Void Rage breakout there was really cool. I also love how he did the shade, waited there for a good few seconds, and then threw it. So as soon as it came down the ramp, it was boom, then they appeared, as opposed to letting your opponent get ready for it, because Jieshi was not prepared at all. Like, the Observer wasn't watching everything, didn't know what was really going on. And yeah, Cyan took total advantage there in that game. It was lovely to see.
Yeah, and it's also really surprising that the Observer wasn't just camped out in the main. It's not like, I mean, the Oracles were on the other side of the map. It's not like there's a world where this was Stargate and Robo. So, you know, there was nothing to really counter the Observer, but he still is a little bit too conservative. Let's see if he does that again, though, because game 4, Oceanborn, here.
And spawning over in the bottom right, as our Blue Pearls currently 2-1 up, it is Jieshi.
And in the upper left, representing the camels consuming grapes, it's Cyan. But actually, though, do you know the story behind the Jieshi's team name, or the team that he plays for, SSLT?
No.
So there's a Chinese parable, apparently, that goes something like a starving camel, or like a dead camel, is still better than a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And the team owners that made this, they think that's funny. Because, of course, you know, in certain, like, if you're traveling through the desert, you'd rather have a camel than you'd rather have a horse. The horses are notoriously fragile animals. I don't know quite whether there's a parable that goes with that saying, but, you know, starving camel is still better than a living horse. And you feed a camel, it gets even better, especially if they eat grapes.
And this is Jieshi's team.
Sorry, Cyan's team.
Okay. I was like, I thought he had a not a more serious team, but I was like, I don't know where this links to camels exactly, but okay. I was so confused.
No. The I don't know if you have the logos mod in, but the logo for Cyan is a very satisfied camel chewing on a frond of something with a bunch of grapes on top of it, like a grapevine. With a bunch of tasty purple grapes.
Yeah, I have no vision of any of this. So yeah, A, it was out the blue for me, and B, it was the other player, and I was like, oh, okay, this is funny. By the way, Jieshi is definitely being the man all about the Adept openings early on. Like 2 Adepts, Robo, pretty much every time when he's gone for double gate build. So absolutely showcasing that he's a little bit, so I don't like to use the term one-trick pony at all, but definitely a little bit predictable in his PvPs thus far. And Cyan is opting for that Stargate again. So given that he won the last game against him, maybe feeling a little bit of confidence here, maybe we'll get to see Cyan get to showcase what he actually has prepped for this series.
Yeah, I was half expecting to see Jieshi change his mind because he was scouted. The Robo was scouted. Cyan knows what's happening. I half expected him to go and only stay on 2 gateways maybe and expand afterwards and just put some pressure on, or honestly maybe even cancel the Robo once it got scouted and do something different. Because again, we saw him go and it didn't. He put himself in a good spot, certainly, but I love Cyan's response here, Ben. Knowing that your opponent's going to attack your main and going to attack your natural, don't take your natural at your natural. Take it a little bit further away.
Yeah, I actually like this a lot, because so far Jieshi, even though he's been fairly solid in the kind of like normal games, he has showcased that the scouting part, and when the games get a little bit weird, he's not as clean. And you often find that with, like, when you have the experience against the sort of less experience, that they can kind of make the game weird, and then you're playing their game and not your own anymore. So Cyan doing this kind of stuff, I like this a lot. Because any kind of throwing any spanner in the works here, just, yeah, more Cyan's playground here. So I like how he's evolving in the series.
And honestly, Ben, you talk about scouting. I think that's even evident in the fact that how hard he's defending against Oracle play. He doesn't know that there's a Stargate, but still every single game he's leaving 2 to 3 Stalkers in his main base and a shield battery on top of it, making sure that he doesn't die to Oracles, which is fair. You're going 1 base. You cannot afford to lose too many probes. But in a situation where this was a Robo opening for Cyan, you would just be in a pretty rough spot, committing that money to a shield battery Stalkers as well. You would love to have some confirmation. Again, JC just, he's trying to cover too many bases, it feels like. Even still, he will get this pile on. His Oracle's on the other side. 4 probes go down, which is kind of a given, right? With only 2 Stalkers there, the Oracles will be able to run through. You want 3 to 4 to really shut that down. But the one thing I want to see this game, Ben, more than anything else, Jieshi, once he gets the advantage, once his opponent starts to build an army and gets up to 3 Void Rays and things like that, go home. Take your natural. Play defensive. Don't get jumped on. Don't go to game 5 like that. I mean, you fooled me once, right? Shame on you, but don't get fooled again.
I actually really like how Cyan's playing this game, man. Like right now, Jieshi, from his side of things, maybe he's thinking like, hey, I'm doing pretty good here. You contained. You haven't got a Nexus going up. Yes, I'm deflecting these Oracles and stuff, but from looking at things like from Cyan's perspective here, this is absolutely, it's paying off here, this proxy base that he's got. And the probe count, 32 versus 25. He's done good probing up. He will need to start remaking some of his production here, but we see him doing that as well at the same time, and he's just buying so much time, because even though he can't really come down the ramp with his army, Jieshi can't come up either. Look at this Void Ray, just lovely play out of Cyan here.
Really nice. Now Oracle's getting a couple more, and the key thing compared to that last game, both Oracles survive. Earlier on, we saw Immortals die, right? That was the problem that shut down some of the power of the push. Actually, no, I'm sorry, that was game 1 I'm thinking of. Anyways, both Oracles are still alive here, and now I don't like Jieshi hanging around like this. The Void Rays are increasing in number. There are more Adepts. Ben, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That feels like it's kind of what Jieshi's doing right now.
No, well, actually, I kind of So remember, Jieshi has no idea about the proxy base. In his mind, yes, he's taking some damage from the oracles, but he's stopping anything from happening. And he's feeling that his army, like, composition is better. And he's done this so many times against stuff that it's worked against. But right now, like, the lack of scouting from him, he has to be thinking, what's going on? Okay. The light switch has gone off. Boom, he scouts that proxy base. He's like, oh, damn, this game is totally different to what I thought. Okay. Let's go and deal with that. And now Cyan, now he's the one that needs to make the move. So it was good by him to realize, like, something's going on here. This is all going way too well for me, given that I don't see everything. And now moving over to that base, and Cyan, he's got to start making moves.
He does, and the question now, does he attack? Does he attack Jieshi? Does he try to defend? How exactly does he deal with this? And I guess the answer right now is just recall all your probes. That's fine. I got enough out of this. It's 7 minutes in. The base was taken at 3 minutes or something. He's mined quite a bit out of this. Look at the income graph. The last 5 minutes has been heavily in Cyan's favor. Now he's just going to take his natural. Go according to plan. He's up 15 probes off of this. And Jieshi now, it does feel like he is not the best spot. It does feel like he really has a lot of pressure to find some value, but he has forced his opponent onto the low ground, and that technically does mean he might be able to take a better fight.
I mean, his army's way bigger right now, isn't it? I mean, Cyan's up to 40 probes here, and even though he's got more supply, having 40 probes where you can't really utilize them, that's huge. 33 out of 10 on his main base. He's got 5 gateways, a robo to use. He's going for blink and charge. This feels like he was doing this kind of freestyle, not super duper prepared for how to follow up. And Jieshi, you know, he's got back to where he kind of wants to be, on this low ground, denying the expo. And back at home, getting his next expo up as well. I mean, Jieshi, this was a weird situation to find himself in, but he responded, once he knew what was going on, responded well, and has got himself back into the comfortable position that he wanted to find himself.
Yeah, key thing as well. First of all, Cyan, 4 adepts onto the other side. I love this with the Warp Prism, but also, Jieshi did have that blink timing. Again, though, these adepts into the main base. Okay, I guess into the natural.
He stopped it. Wow.
Huh. I would have thought he would have gone into the main. There was not a lot there. 3 probes fall.
I am as surprised as you, because even though there was like 4 stalkers there, or 3 stalkers, whatever, still, you're going to clean up probes like crazy. But I guess having the presence on the map, being able to, you know, constantly threaten your opponent, now he's found himself being able to move out of his base as well. And he has a lot of probes to long distance mine with while getting up an expo if he wants to. Yeah, I would start long distance mining straight away if I'm Cyan. I mean, that is way too many probes, but maybe a bit preoccupied on the other side of the map here.
Yeah, certainly. And it seems like the adepts are going to get dealt with for now. But the big deal is that Jieshi caught the Warp Prism. It was rather foolishly rallied into the middle of the map, and Jieshi saw it. It was right over his vision for quite a bit. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But now taking a page out of his opponent's book. 3 adepts into the main base. This time, though, it's directly into the main. Oh, no!
Wow. Yeah, that was about as bad as that could go. Recalling it, losing the Warp Prism, and then the 3 adepts that you had as well didn't deal any damage. I mean, Cyan, he's definitely making this a game, isn't he? Like, I love everything that he's done here. Granted, a few things could have been a little bit better, but he's freestyling based on what his opponent keeps on showing him.
And, you know, I know that Americas starts at the end of the day, but I didn't know that we started the day with Americas as well. I mean, this is wild here. And now, I mean, there's charge done, I think, for Cyan. No, he canceled it, actually. Wants to go for the attack right now. He's got a third base, yeah, second and third base on the way at the same time, so he's really, again, trying to have that cake and eat it, too. Adept's thinking about shading, but that's not going to happen, and I think Cyan's happy about this. Well, he's not happy about how slow his natural is, but either way, you get aggressive and you kill Jieshi if he's not paying attention, or you take your third behind it and you buy yourself some time. But now Jieshi, on the other side of the map here, his army is significantly bigger. And if Cyan trying to defend the third base like this, there's no shield batteries ready. Not just yet. This is not exactly a power position.
No, I feel that Jieshi's play overall has been more solid. Even though I've liked what Cyan's been throwing, like that army, those Void Rays, I'm so surprised he blinked on the Immortals here and not going for those Voids, but he's going to take them down regardless. Eventually, though, he's going to have to worry about those Voids in the sky, and he's committed so hard to these Void Rays over here, Theo. He's only got 10 remaining, and those Void Rays at the top, they might go kind of uncontested here. This is a scrappy fight from Jieshi.
It really is, but now the Void Rays are starting to fall here, and the sentries, their tickle beams are doing enough on top of the Stalkers as well. But you're right, Ben. That was a wild engagement. I can't believe not only did Jieshi blink on the Immortals once, he blinked on them twice. And at this point, Cyan has an Immortal. Jieshi just has some fake ones. He still has hope. He still has dreams that he can punch through. But I don't. Not at all here. This army is so much smaller than it looks. Again, with the fake Immortals on top. He doesn't break the third base. He gets 8 probes. He loses his entire army, loses the game. And we're going to game 5. Ben, before this series, I got a screenshot of the players' chat, their Weibo or whatever it was, and both players said, "I do a little trolling in PvP." I guess that's what that was.
That honestly, Bo, there are times in my life where I'm just like, you know, I have to think about things, and I'm like, these players are obviously far better with Protoss than I will ever be at this point in time in my life. I'm an old whippersnapper, you know, but that was some god awful decision making from
What was
Jieshi.
that?
Like, so most of the army was in the south, like the Immortals, the Sentries. So I mean, they have Guardian Shield and stuff. You know, like the new barrier. Like when it activates, it denies the damage initially as well. So everything that he did there just made that so bad for him. And those Void Rays were easy pickings in the top. Like, he had 4 sentries available. You could like slice off the army, pick off the Void Rays, go back a little bit, go again. Your army was way better, but that was again, this is one of those games where I look at the graph at the end and I'm just like, mate, what are you doing? Like that was god awful from Jieshi. And you know, I'm thankful this is going to a game 5 and we're getting to see Cyan come back into the series with this weird stuff, because yeah, he is sending Jieshi through a loop here. Like, well played to Cyan for making the comeback happen. Oh, mate.
Dude,
what on earth?
Is it Jieshi? Is it Cyan making the comeback happen, or is it Jieshi making the comeback happen? Because honestly, the Jieshi should have won that last game. Void Rays, they are powerful against Stalkers, certainly, but they also pop. Immortals, they last forever. You blink north side, you kill off the Void Rays, you reset, you get into a blink battle. You have just about as many Immortals as your opponent. There's no shield battery. You have warp endpoints. You're fine. You don't need to jump on top of 4 Immortals with barriers. Maybe if he sent a couple Stalkers, sent like individual Stalkers forward to trigger the hardened shields and let those cool down and then jump on top. Okay, fine. Maybe I'll buy that a little more. But jumping on top of it like that, I mean, they're taking a page of a popular movie that came out a couple of years ago. They just want to be the greatest showman, Ben. That's what this is. I don't know. That was wild.
It was for lack of a better word, it was bad. Like yeah, so some of the moves in this series, like I guess okay, there is a lot on the line to be fair and stuff, but freaking A, man, like making a true meal of it like that. I think you could give many players control of the reins there, analyzing the situation. That was just really I can't believe it. Like one of the weaknesses of Void Rays in your army comp is just the fact that they become so brittle, easy to pick off, and then they can't deal the damage they want to do. And you know, having 3 bad boys in the top there just reigning freely, just going completely uncontested. Oh, absolutely awful. Anyway, getting into the 5th and final map between these two, it will be Hecate spawning over in the bottom left-hand side as our blue toss. It is Jieshi.
And rapidly turning into a well-fed camel here in the upper right. In the red, it's Cyan.
I am kind of imagining, like, if there are people like betting on this match, like, I don't know if you bet per map or whatever, but I can imagine bettors, like, say if you're actually betting good money and it's like, oh no, what's happening? Or like, oh yes, it's happening. Like, because this is some, you talked about NA, like this is absolutely Wild West StarCraft. Like none of this is meant to be going like it is. I do think overall Jieshi has been the more solid Protoss, but frick me, I say that and then he does something like that. I just feel, I feel done dirtied, you know?
Yeah, now dude, this is NA because our understanding of the game is not applicable to this series. Like Cyan, he's going to open 2-gate again. It's going to be 2-gate from Jieshi. If I was to hazard a guess, this was going to be we're going to have a Robo follow-up as well. It's going to be a 3-gate Robo. He's going to go contain his opponent. Cyan's going to do something weird. Jieshi's going to do something weird. The game's going to go another 10 minutes, and somehow someone's going to throw it at the end. I don't know. That's just going off history, but we got to see something different, right? I mean, this, it does feel like we're starting, that these players are getting not even in each other's heads. It feels like they're getting in their own heads.
I mean, like, if I'm Cyan, I keep doing the weird stuff, because Jieshi, he is a 2 Adept boy into Robo, through and through. That's what we've seen. One Immortal, goes across the map, gets the Warp Prism out, and he goes. Whereas Cyan, he's the one that's kind of been mixing it up and kind of getting the read on his opponent. And again, look, Bio, this is Robo again. Like, this guy, he knows which line he wants to walk, and he walks it. And Cyan, so far, from being 0-2 down against it, it's been making some pretty weird and wacky calls, and it's kind of been working out for him. Like, yeah, I'm not... I don't know, man. Like, this to me is just so funny, because in my book of plays, when I play against the predictable, there are very blatant hard counters to predictability, and Cyan so far has been showing that he's the one willing to evolve and what have you. I'm not sure about Jieshi anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like Jieshi has 2 builds. On map with ramp, single gate expand. On map without ramp, 3-gate Robo. That's it. That's how he plays. And Cyan, again, he doesn't have as solid of a scout this time. He wasn't able to get into the main base. He doesn't see the Robo directly. He's actually going to win out on the Adept fight here. Very nice. And this is, again, another adaptation. It's going to be a 4 Adept opener. Really, what it should eventually be an 8 Adept opener coming out of Cyan. That's a lot of pressure. Now, the one thing, though, that we do have to talk about, Ben, is that as the pro gets in, doesn't see much. The one thing we have to talk about, 8 Adepts against 3-gate Robo, not necessarily the best.
No, it isn't, but it does mean that your opponent might have to stay at home more than being on your side of things. And remember, his Nexus is so damn early, and what's nice about a predictable opponent is you don't need to scout them. So, yeah, Jieshi, or rather Cyan, he's getting himself sort of prepped up. And I mean, if you do take the wind out of the sails, like Adepts at least don't take super damage from the Immortal. I'm just very curious what Cyan has planned, because he knows what's coming. At this point, you'd have to be a dum-dum to not know what's coming, right?
And Jieshi saw the shades, he saw as many Adepts as they were, and he still runs up the ramp against a bunch of Adepts, takes heavy damage, half damage on that Stalker. The Warp Prism's not there yet. There will be more Warpins, of course, but taking damage on your early, potentially losing that Stalker would have been horrible. But he is doing something a little bit different this time, Ben. Instead of just heading on the full front, running into the defense that he assumes Cyan has, he's going to elevator into the main base, and this is pretty cool. Whether it works out, it's a different question. This Immortal has to join that. Yeah, there we go. Elevator into the main base here. Not a lot of Stalkers. Really nothing to shut down this Warp Prism. And the shield battery in the main base, though, Cyan was so prepared for this. And it's in range of overcharge as well. So Jieshi, I mean, it's a cool idea, but he has to play on the edges. He has to buy some time. There's already an Immortal out, but Stalkers are starting to fall here. Sentry should go down as well. And he finds his way outside of overcharge range, outside of the shield battery range. And now there's room for another Warpin. This was a good setup for Cyan, but it's still doing really nice for Jieshi. Oh no, probes are gonna have to get pulled here. But the Immortal's dead. He let the Immortal go down, and now you gotta run away again, Jieshi. You get 4 probes. Cyan's got his natural. Wow. It's another disaster.
Actually, that was really poor micro out of Jieshi. Like, he had a few calls to make there. Like, this pylon that he started focusing down early on, I actually thought he was gonna do it. Because if you look at that pylon in the main base there, Bio, that pylon powered the 2 gateways, his only 2 gateways, and that shield battery that got overcharged later on. And it's not as if Jieshi didn't have vision of this. Look where that observer is. He sees absolutely all of that. And yet, he kind of he blundered again. The more this series has gone on, even though it started off with me being like, oh, Jieshi's solid, he's super solid, he has showcased that, you know, he's been rocked. And it has been definitely Cyan showcasing that, hey, he's the one being able to make the changes. And Jieshi, it turned into a bit of a one trick, and the one trick has been discovered. It's been found out.
Yeah, it works really well on ladder, especially if you got a barcode. You can do the same thing over and over again, and honestly expect the same result, to just keep killing your opponents, be really powerful in that move. But in a best of 5, when your opponent knows who you are and knows that you're not swapping in for someone, time after time after time, you can make adaptations. You can start to adapt and figure things out and feel your way through a series. And I think one of the things you talked about, I think it was game 3, is really important here. Jieshi's rather new. He has not been to these heady heights all that often, making the upper bracket round of 4, one map away from taking on Oliveira in the next round, not dropping a single map in the entire group stage. These are new setups for him. Cyan's been here before. Cyan's won a Chinese regional before over Oliveira. I think a lot of what we're seeing here is, a large part nerves. As the Immortal drop's going to show up, there are Stalkers here, but 2 Immortals, they shred these Stalkers, so there's not a lot of defense here. Not really. You need that Warp Prism back home, so Stalkers are dying, Immortals are dying. This is so much. Don't lose the. He lost the Immortal.
Did you see what the Immortal was doing as well? It was right-clicked on the Warp Prism, so like it just kind of followed the Warp Prism, and now Cyan realizes the importance of those pylons that power up those gateways. It's a lot of your production, and here Cyan's just having fun. Like, he absolutely is having fun. I mean, that is super damn value. And right now, I just feel that Jieshi, every moment that goes by, is just him falling more and more apart. He doesn't have Blink on the way, that's Cyan. In fact, let's have a look at the unit count. So far, it's just better for Cyan. I mean, Jieshi is not down and out, so to speak, but I just feel that Cyan is gaining confidence as the series has gone on, and Jieshi's just losing it.
Don't worry, Ben. There is, of course, the idea where Cyan just doesn't attack for 5 minutes and lets both players take their third base, and Jieshi can macro his way back into it. But no, Cyan is getting aggressive here. He's got a bunch of sentries. He's got these 2 Immortals. The Warp Prism's low. The Immortals have 50% HP. Maybe. There's 1 shield battery, but it's pretty exposed. There's a decent sentry count. But this army is just not good enough here. It's only a single Immortal. Second one on the way. Sure, fine. Adept's thinking about shading into the main base. But Cyan, I don't know what's really going to stop here. The force fields to start are pretty solid, but again, there's a Warp Prism. You can save that. It's not as scary as it would otherwise be. Warp Prism, of course, going to save for Jieshi as well. And now that's a lot of sentry energy. This next attack coming out of Cyan is going to have a lot more power because, again, the force fields aren't going to keep him out nearly as much. But as is the trend in this series, Ben, Cyan is going to go home and take his third.
I actually like this, though. This one is better to me because seeing that your opponent has been able to defend that quite nicely, you could technically be in a position where it's like, all right, am I actually going to get anything done? The only thing that he gains by being out there is that he can deny a third while he's already got his third on the go. But you've also got to remember like how aggressive you can be with Protoss with having like a Warp Prism out or a random pylon to get adepts over. So I like the fact that this game, where it is far closer, Cyan's just like, you know what? I'm going to solidify my third. I'm going to get charged on the go. I've already got Blink. I know I'm ahead in tech and stuff. So at least he's getting himself in a position where it's like, all right. Just kind of solidifying, getting more ahead. The games before, it was like, I'm going to let you back in, as opposed to what's happening here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it did look like we were going to see Jieshi take his third base right around the same time Cyan did. But instead, third base getting started right now. Cyan's third base is done. And that worker lead, that Jieshi did a solid job of maintaining. He got damage on the other side enough to at least equalize. Well, it's rapidly pulling ahead for Cyan at this point. This third base is not going to be mining for quite a while. Cyan's got Blink done, and Jieshi's going to be attacking without...
He has no idea about this army on the left side, by the way. Cyan doesn't. Look, he is absolutely unaware of where this army is. Now, given that he's scanning with this hallucinated Phoenix, he's like, where are you? Where are you? It has to start ticking sometime soon, like you're on the map somewhere, and he hasn't even bothered to check over to the left side here. I mean, maybe this observer flying in gets to see this observer. Now he can be like, aha, you're over here, aren't you? So that observer itself gave the game away a little bit. Now Jieshi, he was just being smart, but Cyan doesn't realize how lucky he just got. Lovely force field to start things off.
Yeah, really nice force fields. Knocks down a couple Stalkers very early. And Jieshi does have the supply lead. He's got, or army supply lead. He's got 4 Immortals. But you have to be so careful of the flank here. Now, well, charge lots are done if you warp those in against this army. Potentially so good. But look at that recall on the right side. Jieshi can potentially dive on top of the natural right now. Certainly, he's only going to have to take a fight on one angle. His concave can be really good. Archon's at the front, knocking these force fields down. And Cyan blinks on the north side, finding that concave once again. And this firebase of Immortals here for Jieshi, they're going down for Cyan. They are laying hammers down. And at this point, Jieshi maybe had that timing, but again, it's the in-fight execution here from Cyan. It was a weird series, man. It was such a weird series, but it turns out that class matters. And Cyan, he moves on to the semifinals.